getting to the heart of our second week. And so yes, starting to say you should all be very comfortable with your schedules and getting to know your faculty members, your classes. So, but today Dr. Jeffrey is going to he'll introduce himself. But Dr. Jeffrey, many of you already know him, I believe, of course, our registrar. You need an answer to something about how Burman works. There's our expert. So that's what we're covering today. A quick announcement. We will have upgraded our technology, so we will be scanning your ID cards for attendance as you leave. Okay? So you need to be here for the class period to be in attendance. So as you make sure that you get your cards scanned, that's how we're going to be keeping attendance from now on. Yes? Yeah, last time, if you got papers last time, good. But we're switching again. So make it easier. So just have your ID card.
So we don't need the number anymore.
Sorry? They can dispose of their numbers? Yeah. You can frame them, you know, put them in a roll. If you really love your number, keep it, but you do not need your number. Yes, sorry. Yeah, they're at the door over here. There's the scanner. Good question. Anything else? Yes. Okay, your schedule should say 5:55. Okay? All yours, Dr. Jeffrey.
Thank you so much. All right, as we begin, I just have one thing I need to say.
Quiet.
So on Thursday, my worship group is meeting at the church, and I cannot afford to lose my voice talking here. So I need your cooperation with me so that I can speak in a normal voice and get through the next hour and a bit with you. I have a lot to share, and I haven't timed it, so I don't know if it'll all fit, but I am trusting that you will find it valuable. So let's pray as we begin. Father God, we love you and we thank you for being an awesome God. And as we learn, help us to learn from each other. In His name. Amen. So my presentation is called Using University Resources, and there'll be a little bit about becoming a creator, and I'm going to introduce that to you. First, let me introduce myself. A few things that help you to know who I am. I worked at summer camp in Ontario in Brenda, 3 summers. I was the nature director, voice director, and program director. Working at camp is probably the best job you can ever do. Maximum responsibility, impact lives for Christ, bond with an awesome group of people. I enjoy musical leadership, leading worship teams, writing songs, playing piano, church, everything. I'm looking forward to co-leading a small group Bible study on John after Wise is done. So I'll share that again at the end. But on Mondays at lunchtime in the cafeteria, one table, or maybe more, depending on how many people are interested. I'm in my 3rd year here as registrar. Registrar is responsible for creating the schedule, for your graduation. My team is responsible for your admission, handling all the forms you sent in, all the letter requests, all of that stuff. I've also served in the School of Business as assistant professor and as chair of the school. I've been assistant to the president and director of certificates, director of diplomas, and institutional research. So I've had a lot of roles here, and so I know the school pretty well. So hopefully I can help you to get a deeper understanding of what Burman is and how you can succeed here. My PhD is in leadership at Toronto Andrews University. It's a really cool degree. If you ever get to the decision point, you get to do some theory, you get to do a portfolio of competencies, and you do a dissertation. Mine was on marine management systems like D2L, what happens when Adventist schools decide to switch from one to the other, what factors will influence the willingness of faculty to do yet another technology change and really embrace it in a way that makes learning valuable for students. So, it's one thing when you get a PhD, you have to be able to explain it in language that people can actually know what you actually did. I'm going to start with a little inspiration, and it's perhaps a little different from the kind of inspiration you might normally hear. You may be familiar with AI. We all, I think, you all have access to the Gemini AI that is sandboxed from the rest of the world, so the things you put in there don't go out. And AI can be used for a number of different things. You never use AI to do your thinking for you, but I use AI sometimes to integrate different thoughts. And so I've chosen to integrate the Berman University transcript with the idea that the law of God is a transcript of his character. And so I made a deep dive, which does like 40 pages of research, and then I compressed it into a 5 or so minute podcast. So you get a couple of people talking to each other about the idea of connecting Berman University's transcript and God's law. And it's really interesting to listen to. So take a listen.
Okay, so today on the deep dive, we're going to unpack this really interesting idea of a transcript, but maybe not the one you're thinking of.
Right, it's not just about grades or courses completed.
Exactly. We're talking about a living transcript, basically, a person's character as the real measure. And our mission today is to explore how Berman University actually tries to weave together education, divine law concepts, and character building to shape this kind of enduring transcript.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating looking at source material is how they connect these, well, quite deep theological ideas and writings, like from Ellen G. White's True Education,
Right.
with the practicalities of modern university education. It's this holistic view, much broader than just academics.
So let's break that down. We all get the academic transcript, right? That piece of paper.
Sure, that's the standard measure. But this report talks about something deeper. 2 dimensions, really.
Okay.
First, there's what they call the divine transcript. Think of the 10 Commandments.
Okay, man.
But not just as a list of don'ts. They're framed as God's blueprint for character itself. You know, love, justice, truth, eternal principles.
And the second dimension.
That's the human transcript. So that's your character, my character. And the idea is that through the right kind of education, our character could be, well, restored or shaped to mirror that divine blueprint.
Okay. That takes the 10 Commandments into a different space for me. Because often you just think of them as old rules, maybe even just prohibitions. How are they more than that here?
Well, the source describes him as a revelation of his will, a transcript of his character. So less like arbitrary rules decided on a whim,
Right.
and more like fundamental principles of how things work best, adapted so we can understand them.
And the written in stone part.
That symbolism is key. It points to permanence, unchangeableness, reflecting God's own consistent character. They're seen as a kind of roadmap for well-being, but also, importantly, a mirror. Yeah, something that shows us where we might fall short of those principles of love and justice, revealing a need for restoration or growth.
Okay, that's a pretty high ideal, restoring a divine image. How does a university, practically speaking, even attempt that? Especially if, let's be honest, our natural characters don't always line up with that perfect standard.
That's the crucial link to Ellen G. White's concept of true education. It's presented almost as the methodology, God's plan for that very restoration.
And how does that work?
It's about balance. The harmonious development, the text says, of the physical, the mental, and the spiritual powers.
Okay, break that down. Mental.
That's about cultivating real thinking, critical thought, making students thinkers and not mere reflectors of other men's thought, as was explicit.
Got it. Not just repeating information. What about physical?
That includes practical skills, even manual labor, and principles of healthy living. Very grounded.
And through
That
that.
focuses on fostering a personal relationship with God, and importantly, living a life of, unselfish service to others. And the real kicker, the source emphasizes that character development is prioritized above all other attainments. Even high intellectual achievement comes second to character.
Wow. So principles are one thing, but seeing it on the ground, how does Berman University actually, do this today?
Well, you can see direct lines from their mission statement back to true education.
Like what?
Okay, so their mission says, think with discernment. That clearly maps onto the mental development goal. You see it in things like their scholars program, pushing critical analysis.
Makes sense.
Then there's believe with insight and commitment. That's the spiritual development piece, right? Aiming for a deep personal faith, which they list as a core value.
Okay.
And finally, act with confidence, compassion, and competence. That really captures the physical, practical, and service aspect.
So,
Well, through opportunities for Christian service, outreach, and even support structures, like there's Sakala Success Center, which helps students holistically, academically, personally, spiritually. It's all integrated.
and you actually see this in the students, don't you? I remember reading about Azalea Lendorf using her education for humanitarian work. That's act with compassion right there.
Exactly. Or Debbie Mazzella's story, feeling transformed by the community and the focus on spiritual growth she found there.
Yeah. They become these walking examples, living transcripts of the mission.
Precisely. Because the ultimate goal from this perspective isn't just the academic transcript, the grades, it's that other transcript,
The character one.
right? A transformed life, character defined by integrity, by service, by love, and that character, they believe, is like a passport for future service, even preparing people for a wider, higher service in the world to come, an eternal perspective.
So when you really absorb all this, what does it mean for you listening? It suggests education could be seen as way more than job training. It's almost a sacred process of becoming.
Mhm.
It makes you think, doesn't it? If my own transcript was based on integrity or compassion, maybe I would have approached things differently.
And maybe that's the big question it leaves us with. What if we consciously thought about our learning, our jobs, our daily interactions as writing our own living transcript? What kind of character would your life, my life, actually be writing day by day if we aim for those highest principles of love and service?
That's definitely something to chew on. We hope you'll think more about this idea, how education shapes not just what you end up knowing, but really truly who you become.
All right, I think we should take a break for you just to soak in all of that. Because and I don't know if you guys have played with that particular feature, but it creates really dense, deep stuff that will just blow your mind. Hopefully your minds are not blown. Anybody's mind blown? All right. So, but you get an idea, you get a little bit of context for what Berman is and the greater undergirding foundation of what we are hoping you will become. If you attended today at the Week in Spiritual Emphasis, the speaker talks about how really growth is not an option. And really, if you're not growing, you're dying, essentially. We don't want you to be dying. So we want you to take all of the opportunities that you have here and to embrace them so you'll grow. So the thing we're going to talk about today, under these three headings kind of loosely, I want to share with you some personal foundations for success. Then we want to talk about believing, which is I call it increasing expectancy. Expectancy, well, I'll define it. But really that's the part where I give you some practical tools and skills for navigating the environment here at Berman. And then I have a poll everywhere where you guys will be able to send in some questions that you might have about anything here at Berman. And if I can give you an answer, I will. If not, perhaps one of my colleagues will have an answer, but it'll give you a chance to anonymously ask a question about anything that you have questions about in the academic enterprise or even beyond. And then third, we'll look at LinkedIn, and as part of, essentially your quiz for this class will be to create 3 learnings that you have had this year so far from your various classes or this class or being on a sports team and some lesson you learned and the application of that. And my request for you is for the next 3, 4 years, 2 years, however long you're here, to once a week go to your LinkedIn that you'll create today and share there some 3 things that you learned in that week so that by the time you finish, you have created an actual portfolio of real lessons learned that an employer can look at and say, this one's employable because I can see from the first time they started university until they finished that they actually can think and believe and act And do not just trust that the transcript of the degree that you get is just a substitute for real quality students. You'll be able to demonstrate over time. But you have to decide, I'm going to make that investment. It's like the journaling idea that you got from Pastor Bastial, and now you're just doing some academic journaling. So, we'll get to there. First, I want to share a few ideas in terms of personal foundations. Number one is just the concept of authenticity versus acting. When I worked in Trinidad, I worked there as a professor in the School of Business. Oh, and by the way, if you choose to pay attention, you benefit. If you choose not to pay attention, you miss out. And if you miss out, it's sort of like AI. Like if you were to use AI for your entire university career, and you do your assignments and to generate your work, at the end of it all, you might have high grades, but you won't be able to actually do anything. So the investment that you make in your education will have a real outcome on whether you'll be successful with your education. So it doesn't really matter to me if you pay attention, but if you don't pay attention, then if there's anything that I say that could benefit you, you might miss it, and you might have to get it filtered through somebody else who may not understand it the way that you would have if you heard it from me first time. But again, it's up to you. That's your entire university career. You're here, the door is open, the books are available, instructors are there, and you choose what you're going to get out of it. So the first one, authenticity versus acting. When I worked in Trinidad, they had various people in different positions. And often, like a president would, stop working and go somewhere else, and so they would choose an acting president. They had an acting dean of religion, an acting dean of business, an acting, and somebody would joke, here at CUC, which was their Caribbean Union College, everybody's acting. Which means that nobody's really doing the job, they just have a title, but they don't have the authority because they're not really the president, they're just the acting president. Now, we can choose to be real people, or we can choose to be acting people. So, a real student, what are some of the things that a student does? Yes?
Studies.
Pardon me?
Studies.
Studies. Okay, good. What is something else that a student does? Follow up on? Alright, follow up on alright, talks to the teacher when they don't understand something. What's something else that students do?
Take notes during class.
Takes notes during class. Some other things.
Critical thinking.
Alright, think critically. What does that mean anyway? Critical thinking. What is it to think critically?
The art of analyzing and examining a thought and trying to improve it.
Alright, analyzing, examining a thought, trying to improve it, questioning whether what you're being presented with is true or not, whether the information is complete. Right, so that's what we want you to do, right? Be critical thinkers, think, believe, act. So students think critically. What else do students do? Students show up to class. Students do their assignments. Students come to their exams on time. Yep, what else?
Sleep schedule.
Students do what?
Sleep schedule.
Students sleep so that they are able to function well when they come to class. Okay, so if these are the things that students do, and somebody is not doing those things, we might consider them to be as acting students. They're not actually fulfilling the role, but they're pretending to be a student. So first thing I want you to remember, do not pretend to be a student. You have spent too much money, your parents have spent too much money, the government is spending too much money, and the time that you are investing sitting here could be spent better somewhere else, where you could be an actual McDonald's worker, or an actual oil worker, or an actual gardener, or but if you're going to be a student, might as well be an authentic student and not an acting student, unless you are a student doing acting. Best be. Okay, second one, managing perceptions. What colors do you see here?
White and blue.
Pardon me? Blue and black? Everybody sees blue and black? What do you see?
Black and white.
Black and white? What do you see?
White, and it's kind of a grayish yellow.
When say white and it is that color, or that's what you see?
Oh, I see.
Okay, what kind of are you talking about?
Good. So, what I'm trying to illustrate here, and some said it is, it's white and gray, it is, but I asked you, what do you see? There's a difference between the question, what do you see, and the question, what is it? And so since some of you saw white and gray, and some of you saw black and white, or black and blue, that teaches us a lesson, that sometimes we may think we see what is, but what we see is what we see. And that's an important thing to remember, not just with this picture, but you may look at a situation, you may look at what somebody's doing, what somebody's wearing, how they are behaving, and you may think that what you see is what is. So a little bit of humility to maybe ask a deeper question, to find out what others see, and see if you can reconcile why what you see differs from what somebody else sees, instead of saying, you're wrong and I'm right. But that's typically how it is, right? We see something, it's like, what I saw is what is. But what we see is what we see. The Bible says, now I see through a glass dimly, but then face to face. So that idea is that we have to be humble enough as human beings to know what we see is what we see. Okay, so that's the second one. Third one, connection, bridging the gaps. Did you know that if you have a professor who has taught high-level mathematics for 82 years, okay, let's say 18 years, and you have a TA who just learned the material last year and did well in the class, that the TA might be better at explaining the concept to you who's struggling with it than that professor who has been teaching it forever. Why do you think that might be? Yes?
I think when some professors have taught what they're teaching for so long, they kind of already have a flow of like, okay, this material, understand it, because in their brain is like it's very repetitive. They don't usually move from that as well. Usually this type of professor also on the first class will be like, okay, this is my expectations, this is how you get there. There's no communication more than that because he knows what he's doing well. A person who just got in, on the other hand, was a student just recently. So they would have that compassion of like, okay, so we do need to discuss this before we move on.
Okay? And not only compassion, but you still speak the language of, I don't understand this. So you can make that connection between something someone who doesn't understand and someone who needs to just get to that next level. If you're up there where you are, like, I don't know if any of you guys do something so well that you don't even think about it, playing a sport or making music, and if somebody came and asked you, can you help me to understand how you play by ear? And you're like, well, I don't know, you just do it, right? But if somebody had just started the foundations of learning to play by ear, by studying with chords and listening to a song on the radio and hearing the bass, and they remember what it's like to learn. So there will be things where you might struggle with, and somebody else can help bridge that for you. Don't be afraid to ask somebody for help. And if you understand the concept, and you see somebody else is struggling, and if you see that maybe they're asking lots of questions of the professor, and the professor is explaining it, and they still don't get it, and you can, reach out and bridge that gap. Because each of us have the ability to connect with others. That's why if somebody gets baptized or something, they're the best person to win somebody else to truth and love. Because they still remember what it's like and how they made that jump from not believing anything to realizing that, hey, there's an awesome God who loves you. But somebody who's been in the church forever and gotten dull and old and stale, for them to connect with somebody who is just not believing anything, that's a harder leap. Balance. I think you guys talked about balance last class or the class before. I talked to one of you guys earlier today, and I was told that balance, you guys have talked about that. You heard about that in the video as well, not the video, but the AI synthesized integration. So balance basically recognize that you are made up of multiple parts. Don't make your life study, but at the same time, know that you are here for a purpose, right? And your purpose, actually you're here for many purposes. You're here for, A, the purpose of developing a character that's going to serve the world and glorify the one who created us. But you're also here to gain skills that are going to validate everyone's belief in you when they said, yes, you can go to Berman and be successful. So, study well, but also make sure that you take time for spiritual development, for service, for physical development. You eat well, you sleep well. Misha, sleep well? Yes?
Here.
And basically just don't overdo it. Right? You'll know when you're overdoing it. Maybe some of your friends around you will help you. Their feedback is useful. It's not judgment, it's giving you information that you can use to help you to be more balanced. We want all of you to be balanced people. If you feel too out of balance, we do have lots of people around who support and help you to get back into balance. Purpose, know your why. I met a few of you before it started, most of the back row and the front row, and asked, what are you studying and why? And anybody who I talked to willing to share their why, just their why they're studying what they're studying? All right, we'll just keep that close to the chest. Right? Some things, not everything known is to be spoken, my mother used to say. All right, I'll tell you why I chose business. My first degree was business. My first and second degrees were both business. And so when I was coming out of high school, I could have done science, I could have done music, but business is an area where you get skills that you can use anywhere. You become a music producer and you have to have business skills. You understand people, you understand, basically you understand life, because life is business. Life is almost everything, right? Life is biology, life is psychology, but for me, life is business. And even Jesus said, I must be about my Father's business. So I wanted to have the skills that I could have options to do anything with. So here I am, currently registrar, using business skills, sharing with you some business principles and psychology principles. I took some of that too. And it was a benefit. So that's why I did that. Now the reason why you want to know your why is because there will be some tough times ahead for you. There will be days where you'll be doing an assignment and it's difficult and it's challenging and you want to quit. And if you don't have a strong why, you might quit. You might say, I'm gone, after this semester I'm done, I failed this class, and, or nobody likes me, or I didn't make it onto the soccer team, or whatever. And if you don't have a strong why, nothing will hold you here. So those of you who gave me your whys, I appreciate that. Those of you who are thinking, why am I here? Give that some thought. Journal it, right? Ask yourself why you're here. Hopefully me asking this question will not make any of you say, you know what? I don't really want to be here. My parents sent me or sentenced me, and so you decide to drop. But if you're going to drop, now is the time to make that decision. But really, we do not want you to drop. I believe we're at 412 or so students. And we're grateful for every single one of them. Anyhow, finally, apply and integrate. Do not take your classes as, I think, what did I call it when I was in school? The toilet method, where you learn stuff for a semester, you do your exam, and then you flush your brain so that you have it free and open for the next semester. Anybody? No, let me not ask that question. What you want to do is to say, okay, this is the stuff I learned in this semester. Let me keep it here because it might connect to something I'm going to learn in that next semester. And if I can make those connections and apply, integrate, and the stuff I learned in psychology, I'm going to see how I can connect that with the stuff I'm learning in business, the stuff that I learned in biology. Let me see if there's principles that exist about how plants grow that I can use to apply to, I don't know, what can you apply plant growing to? Yes?
Business growth.
To business? Business growth? right? Because a business is an organic institution. It's not just a set of brick and mortar and organizational charts. It's people, living people, cells, right? Structures. So if you can understand biology, and remember, right, God made the world and everything in it. So if something makes sense in one context, it'll also make sense in another context. So once you start to make those connections, like today we talked about a lemon tree and pruning a lemon tree, and how that's about God pruning your character. So if the lemons produce more lemon when you cut off more of the dead stuff, the more dead weight you let God cut out of your life, the more fruitful you will be. And anyhow, I'm not preaching. So, increasing expectancy. Expectancy is a psychology theory which says basically you will try if you think you're going to succeed, and if you succeed, you're going to get a reward you want. All right? That's just a way of saying, what's in it for me? Is it worth it? You guys, ever have a situation where you know that whether you pass or fail a test, you're still going to end up with an A, so you don't study because what's the point? You're still going to get your A? You ever do that? All right, we'll take that as a I don't really want an answer on that. Let me give you a reason not to do that. All right? In this world, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That's the way it works, right? Every time you do something, you are reinforcing a pattern. So if you practice giving half effort, then you get into the habit of giving half effort. Right? If you only turn on the jets when it's necessary, and the rest of the time you're just kind of coasting, then it's hard for you to consistently give your best effort. So the choices you make about every single assignment affect your ability to consistently perform well. That make sense? You may be saying, oh no, I just, I can do that, I can, do half-hearted work on my assignments, and then realize, oh no, I've got a C, I've got to get a 90% to get a B, let me go and get that 90% and work really hard and study. Right? Does that make sense? No, right? So, the idea is you are learning things that are going to make your life easier, and the next section we'll talk about just some simple resources, things like how to use your email properly, how to create a calendar that integrates the Berman calendar, how to read the academic calendar and find your program in it, and how to understand what it's saying, how to understand your program structure, how to turn off all of those items for sale so you don't get flooded with people selling textbooks, which will increase your efficiency and allow you to have a less cluttered life. Show you a couple of things. And the reason I'm doing that is because the more confident you are in your ability to organize your life and function, the better you will do, simply because you are more confident. So this section is designed to just give you some simple tips, some simple information, so that you feel more comfortable and confident. And after that, if my poll everywhere is working, I'll give you guys both a break. It's coming up to break time-ish. Both a break and an opportunity to type in some questions that you would like to have an answer to. Okay, so let's move on to here. All right, now when I prepare, when you talk to any group of people, there's always people who know more than you do, people who know nothing, and everything in between. And so whenever you're trying to present, you want to try to reach everybody, which is pretty much impossible. That's why people tell stories. When you tell a story, people get the surface level, some people get the deep level, some people get the deeper level, some people understand the principle. So one story reaches everyone. Hands up, or you're just stretching. Stretching. Okay, stretching is good. Everybody want to take a quick stretch? Okay, so email, you guys have done email forever, right? Or are you guys the post-email generation where all you know how to do is text? And what is email? You got a rotary phone to go with that? You guys, okay, let's go to email, just to take a look. I'll try not to spend too much time there. And, let's see. If you got a computer or if you have a phone, you can join me, actually. We're not going to do that. Okay, I was almost about to open my Berman email, which would no doubt reveal some student names and stuff, so in the interest of privacy, I'm switching to my third email address. Well, I've got like 12 Google emails. This is my newest one, my DJEF, the DJEF. So this has just junky stuff and Temu orders. I only ordered Temu stuff once, so actually I think I created this email address specifically for Temu because they send you so much junk. But, all right. So I'm going to show you a few things. When you hit compose on a message, you get a to where you can put somebody's email address. There are also another couple of options on this side, CC and BCC. Important to know what each of these do. CC will send an email to other people, and they can all see that you sent that email to all the others. And so they can also reply to all the others, and you can have like a group conversation if you use the reply all button, which is, well, I'll show you that on email. All right? The other one, BCC, is called blind carbon copy, which means that if you send a message to anyone in there, nobody else will see that you sent an email to that person. Okay? That can be useful when you want to send an email to, say, your instructor, to show that instructor that you're sending an email to a student in your group who is not functioning, but you really don't want the student to know that you are including the instructor. Now, I want to be careful with these kinds of scenarios because they get into ethical questions of, do you trust your classmates, and do you want to go behind their back to the instructor before you deal with the student? So that's just an illustration, probably a bad one. So, but the bottom line is, yes.
Could you just repeat what BCC stands for? This is blank?
Blind carbon copy. So it's a carbon copy, they get the same message, but nobody else can see that it was sent to them. Now, this is when I use this. If, for instance, earlier this week, I had a class that I needed to move all the students. Actually, no, I used there's a mail merge feature that's in, I'm not sure if you guys have it. I'll take a look at one of you guys in a second. But what you can do if, for instance, you're sending something to everybody on your soccer team or all of the first-year students and you have all of the emails, and you just want to send it in one email, but you don't want to show everybody's emails to everybody else, you can protect everybody's privacy by including everybody in the BCC. Right? Every day I write a devotional that I post on my Facebook and my Instagram, where I take a picture of something and then a Bible text and then an Ellen White quote and a little comment and then I link a song and I share it with some members of my family, but I put them all in BCC so that they don't all know who else is getting the email. Right? So that's what BCC will do. Okay? Other things that you can do, you can attach files. That's the thing that looks like a paperclip. So if your teachers ask you to send a document, you click on that, and it will allow you to look for the document somewhere in your file folders. If you want to send a link, there's an insert link. So each of the buttons at the bottom will do something. If you hover over them, it will tell you what. So check that out. Now with Berman, let me see. Yeah, I think I'll skip on that. So we're going to go to the items for sale. Is anybody already annoyed by having too many things show up in their inbox?
Yeah.
Okay. Perhaps we should include this in like new student orientation question. Question? Okay. So if you go to groups.google.com, groups.google.com, you will find one there called items for sale. And you click on it, and it will show you all of the recent items. Right? Someone who's getting rid of hiking backpacks, a sociology book. You probably have seen all these in your main email, which you probably do not want. If you click over, let's see what it is. There. Let me go back a step. Okay, so when you're looking at all of your groups, there where you see items for sale, underneath the subscription column, you can change to, as you see, mine is on no email, so I don't get any. But you can also decide, okay, somebody might have something that I want, and I'm willing to check a group of emails that has them all in a digest. And so the digest will send you, oops, not digest, it'll send you one email every maybe 20 emails, so you get less of these items for sale, but you don't miss them all. There's a bridge that will send you bundles, okay, bundles of up to 160, digest will send in bundles of 25. So depending on how many times you want to get them, you could decide. Or if you do not want to get them at all, and you could just go to groups.google.com and find them when you want to find them. I think one of the banes of our existence, that being one of those things that makes our lives miserable, is too many notifications. And perhaps if you want to be an uncluttered-minded student on your phone, go in there and you figure out how to turn off all of your notifications so that you only get information when you want the information. That's just a little tip. It's time for the break. All right, I'm going to switch to break mode, and I think this should work. If you I'll test it. But yeah, you guys can break. Alright, welcome back. Okay, we're going to start now. We've got a few questions, and I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to try to give some compact answers. So a compact answer is when I'm thinking a lot of things, but I say only a few words, and I trust that between my lips and your ears, all of the truth gets in there so that you understand the answer, okay? So, I'll just start at the top. Why is there a strict no computer policy in so many classes? We are adults. While we are adults, some of us have not yet learned discipline and create an environment of distraction for self and others. Hopefully, we can develop a culture of focus so that people trust everyone to make better decisions. So it's not just a matter of, I'm an adult, I can do what I want, but it's, we have realized that students distract not just themselves, but the people around them when they have computers and they're watching sports, and they're watching Netflix, and they're watching, you know, all kinds of stuff. So that's why. So I think there's a combination of changing the culture and gaining the confidence, and working with your instructors and your administration to perhaps give you another chance or to loosen up things to see if, now that we understand that there's a reason for it and that it's a good reason in your best interest and also in the best interest of the teacher, because I mean, part of the reason I'm registrar is because I would be teaching and the students at the back are disengaged and don't care, and you've done your effort and you prepared a great lesson and you're hoping to have a great engaging class, and you come in and the students disappoint you. Nobody likes to be disappointed. What are some practical tips for success in a Christian university setting as a young adult? So that being a young adult being, well, but you're all young adults, right? I mean, anyone who's not 70 is a young adult. But if I understand the question, I think as a young adult and not a kid, a more mature student, connect with other more mature students. Sometimes it's hard when you're serious about what you're doing and you have a purpose, maybe you have a family or you've been a few years out and you're coming in and you are, like, you know what you're about. And you are working with students who maybe, I'm here for fun, I'm here for a wife, husband, I'm here just to be here and, you know, just here, biding my time. I'm here to spend money that I won't be able to get a job to pay back my loans with, whatever it is. And so when you're on that level, when you deal with people on that level, sometimes it's best to connect with other people so you can have hope that, like Elijah said, there are 400 who have not bowed the knee to Baal. There are other people like me who are actually focused. So that's my thought there. How does one balance their life while maintaining high grades, a personal walk with Jesus, leisure, and personal care? First, you change the order. Maintaining a personal walk with Jesus, then high grades, leisure, and personal care. So if you put Jesus first, it's like you see the big rocks in the container. Put the big rock in first, and you'll find that everything else comes into place. Right? If you study your Bible, you connect with God, you begin to understand things in ways that you never could, because Bible and life and love and understanding, say you understand salvation, then you understand biology. Because biology is all about cycles of giving, love, life, the carbon dioxide that you put out, the trees give back, and that's how God made the world. So once you understand God, psychology makes sense, because you understand people. People, when they're disorder, means they're out of order, they're not living, they're breaking some natural laws. Biology, medicine, they're breaking some natural laws, getting sick. Business, a business is failing, there's something they're not doing right. The money's not flowing as it should, it's getting stuck somewhere, the inventory is getting stuck somewhere. Right? So once you understand how everything works, that helps you to understand how your thing works. And you understand how everything works when you start to connect with the one who made everything. So, first things first, God first, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things shall be added unto you. The thing, how do I advance my 4-year course into a 3-year course? I'm not sure I would call that advancing. However, if you want to do that, talk to your academic advisor, and there's a form you do, and that will get you there. What are the chances my credits transfer after you're at Berman? Depends where you want to go and what the requirements are for the program of your choice. So credits transfer, the question is, what credits are they looking for? Every university has its own freedom to choose whether or not they accept credits. If it's in Alberta, there's a thing called Transfer Alberta website. You can see what agreements already exist between Berman and other institutions. But every institution has the prerogative to evaluate your syllabus and to decide how much overlap there is between your course and their course and so on. Why are student wages so low? Not a me question. Can I date? Well, as Paul said, all things are permissible, but not all things are beneficial. So you'll have to ask yourself that question. Okay, so that's that. Let's move on. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to skip a few things. This is the academic calendar. This is available on the Berman website. You can simply search academic calendar. This is important. All right, let's tell you a story. Somebody I know was staying at a Salvation Army hostel, and they went for an overnight stay. They came back after the overnight. Now, before they left, they asked permission at the desk. And the person at the desk heard them say, yep, I'm leaving. They came back. They had lost their room because there was a policy that said, if you're going to leave, you have to talk to a social worker, then you have to get an overnight stay pass. Sorry, you lost your room. You can reapply. Was it fair? Was it fair? They didn't really know because they hadn't read the things that they signed when they checked in. This is your things that you signed when you checked in. This is your academic calendar. So if you, for instance, decide to come half an hour plus 1 minute late to your final exam, you don't get in. Who wants to have that happen to them? Not me. All right? If you want to repeat a course 3 times, you can't. After you've repeated it twice, you can't do it again. Unless you get some special permission. If your GPA is below 2, more than 1 semester, you are eligible for academic dismissal. Which is not fun because then you have to do 3 courses somewhere else to be able to come back. And I don't know if you've heard about the Berman Vortex. It's like once people come here and experience the love and the care and the service and the opportunities, they want to stay here. And some will come back and do another degree, an after degree, or go away and come back and work here. Berman is such an awesome place. So if you leave because you didn't focus on your studies, then you'll be sad. So understand the policies. It's available, download it as a PDF, and just read a couple of pages every night. As I told some group, this is my Bible, this is my second Bible, right? And this will call it my third, Have a White Book Education. On the Berman website, you can also find and you can search for the recommended degree sequences. I won't go there now, but it shows, your advisors have probably worked with you or showed you something that shows first semester, second semester, second year, first semester. All right, take a look at that. All right, that will give you some guidance so that you can start to chart your own pathway. Also, inside the academic calendar, all of the program requirements for all of the programs exist. I would say download one sheet, yours, and use the annotation features and Adobe Reader to keep track of your progress so that you know how close you are to the end. Anybody here use a GPS? I use a GPS even when I'm going home because it tells me how many minutes away I am from my house. Right? I know how to get there, but I always like to know, okay, I'm 10 minutes away from home. Right? 5 minutes away from home. I like to know when I'm almost home. Sakala Success Center, and coming back to here. Counting the minutes, I've got 20 now. Okay, so LinkedIn. How many of you already have a LinkedIn account? Hoping a lot? Yeah. Because my thought was like, oh, okay, probably half the class already does. Because I'm thinking we've already talked about the shepherding, scaffolding, helping people. So my goal was like, okay, we're going to set up our LinkedIn accounts. If people struggle, somebody who's really good or already has done it, they're the best person to help them. So I don't have to run around the whole class helping people set up. But you guys all have social media, right? And one social media is the same as another. You just say, add, put in some information, maybe have to check on your phone to authenticate yourself. But before we get to the LinkedIn, I just want to share some human principles of connection. Right? When I taught this class last year, I talked more about social media and connecting, and I thought as I took out that whole section that this was something I just wanted to touch on. You are here, you are meeting people, you get opportunities to go to networking events. I know that today one of our classes went to a CPA networking event. I asked the instructor, please make sure that they get to listen to our Week in Spiritual Emphasis as they go in the bus, because I didn't want them to miss out on that part of our experience. But smile and make eye contact with people. I know that's harder these days because we're so used to looking at screens, but actually when you meet people here, as I may have told you or some of you before, the first couple of weeks of school are the perfect time to actually go up to somebody you don't know and say, hi, what's your name? Because we're still open. After about week 3, people start to go to their groups. So get to know people. Firm handshake, introduce yourself. use people's names and write it in your phone after you go away so that you don't forget who they were, because it's always embarrassing to say, I forgot your name again, but do that if you need to. Document, that's what I just said. Listen before you speak, that's a big one. Ask open questions, not questions that end in yes or no, but where are you from? Why are you studying that? Okay. Be genuinely interested in the people you're talking to. Ask to stay connected with people. Be honest. And when you meet people who are important, share them with your friends and your classmates and stuff. You all know people. We all know people. Okay, LinkedIn. Gonna skip that one. Lots of benefits of LinkedIn. If you are a student and you want to be employed in the future, this is a perfect way to begin to market yourself. Right? Marketing is showing the world that you have something that they want. And here at Burman University, hopefully by now you understand that you are in a very special place that is preparing people who are going to shine above all those of the world who just have skills. If you embrace what Burman is, you will leave here with character. If you choose not to, you'll just leave with a degree, maybe feeling that you rubbed up against some restrictions or something. But if you embrace what Burman is, you will leave here as a very special person, like more special than you already are. Okay, this is a refining place. So you're communicating who you are through the portal, through the LinkedIn world. And that's what you do on your Facebooks and your Instagrams. You're telling the world, this is who I am, this is what I did, So here, this is for business people, professionals, and it's a place for you to begin to share who you are and what you are learning as you're learning. Real-time documentation of who you are. So, said there, put your mask on second, which means if you already have LinkedIn, help somebody before you do anything that we're doing today. Right? If you're on a plane, you put your mask on first, because if you don't, then you might not survive to help somebody else. But here, if you already have LinkedIn, all right, find somebody around you who does not have LinkedIn and says, I could use some help. So go to LinkedIn.com or download the LinkedIn app and get yourself a LinkedIn profile connected to Burman University. So I'm going to leave it with you to create your LinkedIn account sometime in the very near future, because, again, your quiz for this class is to create some content. 3 important lessons that you have learned as a student so far. So I thought I had, which I know I had, but it seems to have disappeared. Maybe I didn't save it or something. So I created one myself and I deleted that picture. So the one that I created was something like, let's see, it's based on this morning's conversation. Yeah, so I wrote something like, today at WISE, the speaker talked about the importance of growing. If you're going to be a Christian, then growing is not optional. So I am committing that in my life as a student and beyond, I am going to find a way to be sure that I grow in many ways every day. And so that's a lesson and an application. And so that's what, this is not, I guess I lost that. So one important lesson and how you apply it. Alright, so you understand that instruction, right? You pick something that you've learned. So I was in economics class and they talked about how tariffs, the burden of the tariff, who pays the tariff, depends upon how elastic the demand is. For those who are already in economics, maybe you haven't studied that yet, but understand that there's a thing called elasticity, and that determines whether if you increase the price of something, if people will still buy it because they need it, or if they'll buy less of it because they can buy something else instead. So if you can buy something else instead, then the people who are selling it can't keep the prices high, so they have to adjust. And so maybe it's not always the customer who's going to pay. Maybe that burden might shift back to the people who are selling. So it's not, Mr. Trump is lying, and, it's more complex than that. And every situation is different depending on whether or not people have. So if today I learned about tariffs, and that taught me that every situation is different. So in my life, I will make sure I carefully consider every situation to know how to respond appropriately instead of treating every situation alike. So that's an example of a learning from a class. So that's the kind of thing that I want you to do. Right? It might be easier in some classes than others, because you can't, you may find a math problem is hard to evaluate, but you can say, I struggled in this class today, but I made a breakthrough. I learned that if I work hard and am persistent, then I can get success. So whenever I hit a challenge, I'm going to work hard. Or you may say, I had a challenge, and I took a break and did something else and came back to it. I have learned that this works better for me. So things that show that you're already learning things. But you guys are all professional students, right? You've been doing this since you were 5, the student thing. So you've learned how to understand different teachers. You've learned how to correct a teacher by asking a question instead of telling them what they put on the board is wrong. You've learned how to approach a situation when you feel you've been treated unfairly by a teacher. Like you guys are students, right? You're not acting students, you are professional students. Right? Instead of you being paid, you're paying, but you're all professional students. So you guys, students, learn. And so what I'm asking you to do is simply document things that you've learned, and everything you learn is valuable. Right? Are there, time is up, right? All right, so everything you learn is valuable.